We are charting the higher octave with my guest today. He's the bass player for the post-punk gothic rock band called the Funeral March of the Marionettes. Formed in 1987, I have Darius McCaskey. How are you, Darius? Thank you for joining me.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. I want to start off. I know some of the people involved in this album as well, who I've met. It's interesting because I didn't even know some of these things I was reading about. So this you are the bass player for the funeral march. It's simply called the funeral march, right? If you want to go the long way, funeral march of the Marionettes. And
Right.
I know that there's a tribute EP that was recently released, a tribute to the late founder Joe uh,
Yeah, Joe Whitaker,
Joe
the
Whitaker.
one of the co-founders of the band from back in '87. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know that you guys have a quite a connection. You have a lot of admiration for him, and you spend a lot of time with him before his passing. Yeah,
Y-
maybe you can talk a little bit about that and how you connected with him and the making of this EP.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so Joe and I actually knew each other for quite a while before I joined the band. It's funny though because we have a ton of mutual friends,
Hmm.
but never actually met until we started working together at our day job.
Hmm.
And it's one of those where it's like, well, how did we not meet until now? Because we know so many people, mutual friends and the like. Um, but in during the pandemic, Joe had re-kicked things off in 2017, the 30th anniversary of the band after it had been on hiatus for a little while. Um, and they'd put out, some found recordings of some of the original material from back in the 80s and early 90s. And then, he started writing new material again too. And the one thing that Joe really wanted to do with the band is get back to touring, getting out on the road and playing live shows. And so during the pandemic, actually, was the first that the Funeral March played. It was just him and Wayne, the guitar player, and they had a lot of stuff on backing tracks. And it was challenging for Joe to sing and make sure that tracks started and stopped when they were supposed to. And so that's kind of how I came in. Originally my job was just to make sure that the trains ran on time, backing tracks started when they're supposed to, trigger some samples. But I've been a bass player for a while, and Joe had taken over bass playing responsibilities for the band, and similar kind of thing. It was hard for him to play those bass lines and sing at the same time. And so, after my first show with the band, I was pretty much just, triggering samples and starting tracks and stuff. And then I was like, hey, do you mind if I take a crack at, actually playing the bass on one of these songs? And he was totally for it. And so then the next show, I was playing bass on a couple of songs. And the next show, it was a few more until, a
Hmm.
couple of shows in, I was just playing bass full time and then had to reconfigure the rig so that I could do that and trigger the backing tracks. Um, and then sort of graduated from there to becoming a full-fledged member of the band.
Now I know Joe had he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. How long ago was that? I know that kind of cancer like just goes really quickly.
It's very aggressive, and the biggest problem with it is that there's not a good way to detect it until it's spread to other parts of the body, and usually
Yeah.
by then it's too late to really effectively treat it. So yeah, we had finished recording the EP with William Faith in over the summer of 2023. Joe got diagnosed in
Oh,
November.
wow. In 2023?
Yeah,
Wow. And then he passed away last year.
last year in
Oh
May.
my gosh.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, well, and uh,
I'm
it
sorry.
does. I appreciate that, and it does. It does sound very sudden, but when he first went into the hospital in November, the doctors were telling his wife, he wasn't going to make it until the end of the year. And he did. He kind of rallied and was able to leave the hospital, go back home. That was his only goal when he first went in. I just want to go home. And he did. He fought like hell and was able to go home, and at first responded really well to treatment. We were actually able to shoot the footage for the music videos for Stars at Night, and It All Falls Apart, like while he was in treatment. He
Mhm.
had, gotten well enough that he could move around and leave the house and stuff. But then like it was really like April of last year, things just went downhill really fast. And then by May, that was that.
And so the band released their final studio recording. When was that released? In March, right, of this year?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's an EP, and you can find it on Bandcamp. Just look for the Funeral March Bandcamp. I think you just find it simply by putting in the Funeral March. And
Yeah.
that's an EP that's produced by William Faith, right? And there's a
Yep.
lot of artists in here, and there's also a remix version of It All Falls Apart by the BELLHEAD remix and the Joy Thieves. And also there's a song called Stars at Night, which is uh, there's a guest vocalist, the lead singer for Octavian Winter's Ria Aursjoen. She's in that song, and there's another song, right? She's in.
Yeah, a song called Save Us.
Save Us. I actually like that song. I love it. Save Us. Yeah. I mean, they're all great, but Save Us is a beautiful song. And I know there's other players here. There's also a video, and in the video, Joe was in the video too, right? They were able to capture it before his passing, right? They filmed the
Yeah.
video. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the last time he was on camera really. And we got, pretty lucky. The days that we had scheduled to shoot, originally we were planning on actually going into Chicago and shooting, in some locations in Chicago. He wasn't able to do that, so we just did everything here in our hometown, which is about 90 miles away from Chicago. And yeah, I'm really glad that we got to do that. I'm glad that he was able to see, some of the dailies. He never got to see the final videos, unfortunately, but he did get to hear the full record, before he passed on, which,
Oh, yeah, it's a
is
beautiful record.
really
And
special. Yeah.
yeah, it's very special. And I know that you really admire him, and you look up to him, and I'm sure he's felt the same way about you. I can see that the collaboration was very tight, and you're doing this interview, just we're speaking about him, and I'm sure he's looking down and watching you right now, probably enjoying the video, the interview. Um, yeah, I mean, this is there was several things, of course, before this. He also released, was he part of the release for those other albums that came out? I know that the band went in hiatus, right? In 2020, 2000, and then it formed again, right? And then they released the debut EP, The Raven, at some point, and there was
Yeah.
things that was done.
Yeah. Really, like, I can't speak to the way the band worked, back in the 80s and 90s because I wasn't a
Yeah.
part of it then. But when things picked back up in 2017, it was Joe at the helm. He was the one, you know, driving the car and navigating where the car was going. I mean, it really was Joe's project. And the rest of us were kind of along for the ride. Not that he was, a dictator about it or anything. It's just he had a very specific vision of, what he wanted the band to sound like and where he wanted it to go. And, always open to feedback, but with that vision in mind. So yeah, it really, and this is why, all of the press has mentioned that this is the final EP from the band, because as far as I'm concerned, there is no funeral march without a Whitaker at the helm.
Oh,
Um,
I was gonna ask you that. Do you plan to continue the legacy of the band and moving it forward?
yeah, no, I mean, at this point, I can't imagine doing it without him, to be honest. What we had was special, but I don't I don't know that I could live up to the vision that he had in mind. You know what I mean? I just I think that it's important to celebrate what we had, and
Mhm.
um
Yeah.
but yeah, I can't see myself, taking up the mantle and driving it forward. um
Well,
it's
certainly the name of the band itself it really does the funeral march of the Marionettes. I mean, it's so like if this is the final album, then it's a perfect title for the name of the band. Yeah, and
yeah.
a great tribute to him and his legacy. And I know that the proceeds for the release of this EP, it all falls apart, is going to his family, right? To Joe's family.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything that we make from, the Spotify royalties and Bandcamp sales, it's all going to his wife and his two kids that he leaves behind. Yeah.
Wow. Now the EPs before this, which is there's Resurgence that was released in 2018, Solace 2020, Flood 2021, and Persephone 2020 through 2023. Where can if people wanted to check out the rest of the albums, and do you know where we get that?
The whole catalog, you can get Bandcamp, Apple Music,
Oh,
Spotify. Yep. We're All of the releases are on all of the platforms.
oh, okay.
Unless you're using like Deezer or one of one of the B tier streamers, then I'm not sure.
But this particular EP, you can find it on Bandcamp. Just look for the Funeral March on Bandcamp. This is the EP. It all falls apart. The Funeral March of the Marionettes, or the Funeral March. And there's a lot of it. The remix is great as well. And there's also an instrumental remix there of Stars at Night. There's about 9 tracks total. And of course,
Yeah.
a big shout out to Michelle at UTM Music Group. But
For sure.
yeah.
Michelle has been invaluable in
Oh yeah.
helping me. One of the things about Joe having that vision and his hand on the wheel is that a lot of this kind of stuff he just took care of, and the rest of us guys just showed up and played. And so uh, when it kind of fell on me to drive this EP to release, I definitely needed help, and I called in every favor I could, including with Michelle. Yeah.
So there's a video that was released. The video as well. It's on YouTube. Would that be it? Where you find it? Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yeah. Both of the videos, one for Stars at Night and one for It All Falls Apart, are on our YouTube channel, as well as a couple of other videos from some of the previous releases too.
and so that was filmed in Illinois. In
Yes, good old Rockford, Illinois.
Oh, yeah. So is that where you're originally from as well? You guys are both from
Yes.
there? Wow.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So how did you connect with William Faith?
So Joe had wanted to work with William for a long, long time. Obviously William's got a stellar reputation in the scene.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just really a matter of, actually getting a chance to sit down with him and talk about the project. And, just so happened that Joe and William were at the same show in Chicago, and they got to talking, and Joe was like, "Hey, we just finished up an EP. It's coming out soon. We're already ready to get going on the next one. Like, do you want to hear some demos?" And William was all for it. And
Mm-hmm.
the
Wow.
rest, as they say, is history. Yeah, it was just kind of magical. And um, the experience of working with William was everything that Joe had hoped that it would be. Like, they had an immediate like shared vocabulary because they, knew all of the
Cool.
same bands, and yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And it made the process, super smooth and really a lot of fun, because there wasn't a whole lot of trying to dig up some reference and like, no, I want this guitar to sound like this or whatever. Joe could just say, hey, can you make the guitar on this track, kind of sound like this other, this Sisters song? And William instantly was like, "Yep, I know the sound and I know exactly how to get it." And
Wow, that's
so it
great.
was just boom, boom, boom. Like, yeah, it was really a lot of fun. The only complaint I have about it is that parking in Chicago sucks. So going in to record at the studio, that was the worst part, is finding a place to park the car, you know?
Well, and then I know Ria knows William, so that's how you guys connected with her.
Yeah, and it was the same kind of thing, something Joe had wanted to do for a long time. Like he always envisioned having, a female vocalist to kind of play off of what he was doing in a song, and we just never found the right person here locally. And so Joe had honestly kind of almost given up on the idea. Um,
Yeah.
and then when we went into, to record this, Joe just happened to mention it, and William was like, "Okay, cool, I'll keep that in mind." And then we're recording, we're starting to get into the mixing phase, and it was like, "Yep, this is the song right here, and I know the perfect person." And so, a couple of emails and phone calls later, and bam, Ria was 100% for it, and she knocked it out of the ballpark. I mean,
Oh yeah, she's great. She's a great vocalist, and I got a chance to watch Octavian Winters just a month ago.
oh,
Um,
cool.
Actually, this month we're still in May. Yeah, so I went up to San Francisco, and they were playing on that boat. Um,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I
and
remember
then
seeing the
the
the promos for that.
Goth
Yeah.
World Day for Goth World Day is yeah, the great performance by Octavian Winters, and I think they're releasing an album pretty soon. I'm not gonna say much because I don't really know, but something like that. It's just, yeah. So and I met William too briefly in San Francisco before the pandemic.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
there was it was, I think, the Clan of Zymox. Yeah, they were the support band. Um, the Bellwether Syndicate. So that was good. Yeah. Wow. So this is an amazing project, and thank you for speaking with me and representing the band and putting this all together, putting it all out. So are you gonna branch out and do your own thing? That's my question. I think you should.
Well, so it's funny you mentioned that. So before I joined the funeral march, I'd been kicking around the idea of, like, doing something myself solo. Friend of mine that I've known for many, many years actually released a really solid dark wave record a while back. His band's called Shadows and Mirrors. And so after it came out, I was like, "Dude, this sounds amazing. Like, where'd you record?" And he was like, "In my basement." And I was like, "Wait, what?" And he's like, "Yeah, come on over. We'll have a beer. I'll show you my setup." And so I did. I spent the whole day over at his place, and he kind of walked me through some of the basics, and I was like, "All right, I think I'm going to give this thing a go." So, Joe and I were talking at work the following Monday, and he's like, "Well, hey, I got an old MIDI controller I'm not using. Do you want to borrow it?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, it's one less thing I have to buy." And then, 2 weeks later, he's like, "Oh, I decided to upgrade my studio monitors, so here's my old ones." And so, like, half the stuff that I needed, Joe, was right there with, like, "Yeah, here, go." And that's just kind of the sort of guy he was. Like, not even just with me and encouraging, my solo project, but, really trying to build a scene here. And, Rockford's a
Yeah,
city
you
of
know, you,
about
yeah,
150,000, but any scene that exists here, he was 100%,
uh,
pushing it, like
I read.
hosting, yeah, hosting goth nights at
Mhm.
whatever bar would have him, like,
Yeah, yeah, he's a
um,
DJ too, right?
yeah, yeah, he DJ'd a long time, did kind of a tandem thing called Erodicay with one of his longtime friends. And so they
Oh,
would, like, trade off, throughout the night, and very cool stuff. And, that's the thing, is that, like, Joe was always, super supportive, encouraging other artists, like, "Yep, go do the thing that you want to do." And so
that's great.
that's what my plan is for the future musically, is to get back to my solo project. It's very different than the funeral march. It's definitely skews more like dark wavy,
Oh, so what's the name of the project? Say it again.
Peter Jennings Disciples is my solo project.
Oh, okay, all
um,
right.
or PJD for short. Yeah,
Okay. Well, we have to get you back on the show then when you're ready. When
for
you're
sure. I'm I am working on new material right now. There's quite a few tracks that, I've kind of had in the back burner for a while that I'm
All right.
gonna pull forward and hopefully get another EP out. I don't know if it'll be this year. I'm shooting for fall, but we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, you got a lot of things in your hand right now with this just to release,
Yeah,
because I know it does take a lot, just going through the grieving process, and everything else.
for
And
sure.
can you tell me a little bit about who are the players in this project? I know there's you, Joe. Is it Wayne?
Yeah, Wayne Thiele played guitar for us on this record, and he played on the previous one, Persephone, as well. Um, he uh, he was kind of he was our main guitarist when we were out on tour for Persephone, and
Mm.
you
Okay.
know we unfortunately had decided to part ways with Wayne before Joe got diagnosed.
Oh.
Shortly before, it was like October, that we wanted to go a different direction.
Mhm.
Um, and in addition to the three of us, which was the core of the band at the time, um, Joe's friend Rob Hyman from a band called Melter in Chicago, who used to be in Usher House back in the day, played drums for us on a couple of tracks.
Mhm.
Um, and then you mentioned Ria, of course,
Mhm.
sang on a couple of songs. And then on one track, we have a guest guitarist. He's not playing guitars; he's playing the bass six, which is a very post punky kind of influence. The Cure used the bass six quite a bit on some of their big recordings, and yeah, the performance that we got for that was like
Mhm.
just perfect for the track.
Yeah, it looks like a great album, and I know it's already out. So I will put the link on the bottom of the page of the interview, the funeral march of the Marionettes. And no, thank you so much for joining me, Darius
I
Mikowski.
appreciate it.
McCaskey.
Yeah,
McCaskey. Yeah. All right. Good luck with your solo work as well, and we'll get you back on the show again. All right.
for sure. I appreciate it.
All right.